I'm a parent. I'm a grandparent. I can't imagine. I can do something. I can do something.
I urge them to use their lives to give meaning to Hadia's life. I urge them to dream as big as she did, and work as hard as she did, and live a life that honors every last bit of her God-given promise.
That was the First Lady and Senator Joe Manchin, part of an emotional week in the gun debate. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, we have our roundtable. George Will, as always, Ruth Marcus of the Washington Post, Bob Goodlatte of Virginia, Republican Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Luis Gutierrez, Democrat of Illinois, Kim Strassel with the Wall Street Journal. George, right to you. You heard a debate among Republicans on immigration. Which side should the Republican Party come down on?
Every conservative sympathizes with what Jeff Sessions was saying about not rewarding lawbreaking. However, conservatism begins with facing facts. The facts are that of the 11 million people who are here illegally, 2/3 have been here a decade or more, 30% 15 years or more. They're woven into our society, they're not leaving, and the American people would not tolerate the police measures necessary to extract them from our community. Therefore, the great consensus has to be on the details of a path to citizenship. The most important thing Rubio said in your interview was, even if the system weren't broken, even if we had no illegal immigrants, we'd still need to do something about this because we need the workers as the baby boomers retire and as the birth rate declines. We need something to replenish the workforce to sustain the welfare state.
And the framing from Rubio was interesting, saying we really already have amnesty. Nobody's prosecuting the undocumented immigrants here now.
Absolutely, and I want to say I'm going to really enjoy saying this next sentence. I completely agree with every syllable that George Will just said, and I think the stars are in alignment for many of the reasons that he said. The issue is less of a hot button than it was, in part because net migration from Mexico is zero. Technology has been our friend on immigration, both in the workplace and in terms of drone surveillance on the border. It's easier to achieve enforcement. And Republicans, most of them, have realized not just the facts on the ground of immigration, but the political facts on the ground that their party is going to need to get right on this issue.
But, Mr. Chairman, we've been here before. I mean, 2006, the Senate, 61 votes, I think it was 62 votes, passed immigration reform, and it died in the House because Republicans in the House wouldn't even bring it up. Is that going to happen again this time?
I would argue it died in the Senate as a response to the American people.
But it passed in 2006.
Okay, well, look, the fact of the matter is we have to learn the lessons of both 1986 and 2007. In 1986, we passed an immigration law that allowed close to 3 million people to get here, to stay here and get permanent resident status, and if they wanted citizenship. And we had new enforcement laws that, by every president, not just the current one, have been only honored in the breach. That is a key question that has to be addressed this time. The second time, 2007, I think it failed because it was done from the top down. And the Senate right now is at a critical point. They have worked a small group with, we found out today, a representative of the White House in all of the meetings in helping to draft this when the staff meeting took place.
Not a problem for you?
Not a problem for me, but it is a problem how they go from here. It is absolutely important that they follow regular order. Marco Rubio is right that they have a full exposition of it. He said this morning to you, it'd be wonderful to have the other 92 senators have their full input in this process and bring it from the ground up. The same thing needs to happen in the House.
But a quick bottom line, do you think that what he's talking about, what Rubio's talking about, could you envision it passing in the House?
I think that the specifics of that bill will be different than the specifics of the bill in the House, but we have to address legal immigration reform, we have to address enforcement, and we have to address what we do with 11 million or more people who are not lawfully here. And I think we can do that in a bipartisan way, but we've got to get the enforcement part right, and not just what the law says, but making sure that no one person, President of the United States, can flip a switch and not enforce the law, as many presidents have done before. That's going to be a key question here.
Congressman?
I haven't seen in recent memory, at least my 20 years, such a dramatic and sudden change in attitude towards a public policy issue like the one we've seen after November 6th among the members of Congress. in the House of Representatives. The fact that Chairman Goodlatte and I can be on this program together and agree that we're going to move forward on resolving our broken immigration system, I think demonstrates that sea change that exists. Look, I've been working on this issue for 20 years. We're making real progress. I see real history being written in this Congress, and I see it written this year and signed by the President of the United States. Next Tuesday, next Monday, the 22nd, Representative Paul Ryan is going to come down from Michigan and join me before the City Club.
You guys always hang out, so.
Yeah, sure. Ryan and Gutierrez are always the best of thumbs and friends. And, well, interestingly enough, they sold out in 12 minutes. They went online. Now, everybody...
So bipartisanship is breaking out on Capitol Hill. Kim, you're skeptical.
Just to put a little bit of downer on this, I think that it is amazing what we have seen so far. And yes, it's all incredibly optimistic. This is the point that things become difficult. Now, you're going to have language in a bill. It's going to come out. You're going to have hearings. And I think one thing to keep your eye on, too, is that there has been some focus on Republicans being the ones who have not been in favor of this in the past. In fact, if you go back and you look at the legislative record, the real problem immigration has had is that you've had common cause between those on the right and on the left. So on the right, those who don't want immigration. On the left, often unions, for instance, who don't want a guest worker program, who don't want some of this. And you've seen Republican and Democratic members come together to poison pill some of these pieces of legislation. We don't know if that's going to come out yet. It's good news that the people who are leading this are coming out very boldly and talking as strongly as they have. And we also don't know, too, what role the White House is going to play in this yet as well.
Yeah, but I think that you haven't seen the kinds of conversation that exist.
Yeah, and labor.
And if in the House of Representatives, I mean, Raul Labrador from Idaho, a Tea Party favorite, is leading on this issue. There are those, I mean, I remember reading, they said, well, you can't put Luis Gutierrez and Raul Labrador, an extreme left and extreme right person in a room and reach a bipartisan. I think we are going to work to reach that. And let me just also suggest, 1,400 people are deported every day. So to say that the system doesn't have an ill effect on a community and that there is no enforcement, 1,400 will be today, tomorrow, 1.6 million. It's having a devastating effect. And to just follow up on what George Will said, one of the things that he didn't mention that we can add, there are millions of American citizen children. Their parents are the undocumented. We need to resolve this for those children.
And I think Kim makes a really important point, but it's the reason that I'm optimistic. The usual frictions between labor and business, I think, have been largely resolved. The business community, small business and big business, is much more unified than it has been. I think the civil rights community, the Latino community, the White House is in a very, very pragmatic approach. They're not insisting on an instant get citizenship tomorrow or 5 years from now. I think the big sticking point is going to be the trigger for enforcement. Is this going to be bring me the witch's broomstick enforcement, where you'll never be able to certify that, yes, you can have this path? That's the sticking point, but I'm feeling very optimistic.
You're also seeing a new issue, too.
Kim and Ruth are both right. I mean,
very good. And the end of conversation.
But here's the thing. If we don't get the enforcement right, not just from the standpoint of what the law says, but how it's going to be carried out. We haven't yet talked about, for example, are we just going to rely upon the federal government, a thin group of 5,000 enforcement agents across this large country, to enforce the law in the future, or are we going to allow state and local law enforcement to participate this in a way that they've not been allowed to participate in?
And I think we can do them both at the same time. Look, here's what I believe the community, the immigrant community, voted. The vote on November 6th. It was to say, take the 11 million and put them in a safe place. That is, stop the deportations, allow those parents to raise those children, get them right with the law, give them a Social Security card, put them on the tax roll, give up their fingerprints. Everybody keeps telling me, well, Republicans, they like this more the more they hear about background checks for the immigrants, the more they hear that they're going to have to learn English.
They like the enforcement, and that's what Rubio was telling Rush Limbaugh's of the world.
Fine. There isn't a problem, because what immigrants are saying to me is, where do I write the check out to pay the fine? Where do I take that English class so I can get right with the law?
John, to
What's happening better?
answer your first question to George, I think the key